both Paulson and then it continued under the Obama administration, Geithner, tried very hard to make sure that we, the public, would never learn that our taxpayer dollars had done that. What changed that, and this is why people should not give up, was political pressure from Congress. And political pressure not on the administration, which was, let it roll off its back like a duck, but political pressure on AIG. And here's what the mantra was: not a penny more. Not a penny more of taxpayer money goes to AIG until we know how the money has been used. And that's pressure on AIG is the only reason we know about the Goldman bailout, or that the fact that $50 billion roughly of U.S. taxpayer money went to bail out foreign banks. Foreign banks. Why would we do that? Including UBS, a massive Swiss bank that at the same time we were bailing them out secretly with $5 billion, the U.S. government tells us that UBS was involved in defrauding the taxpayers of America. We hit them with a huge fine, it's a settlement of $780 million. But you do the math. If we gave them $5 billion and they paid us $780 million, who really paid the fine? The U.S. taxpayers really paid that fine.
Yeah, we're paying them to steal from us, and you've got Bloomberg's reporting $12.8 trillion committed, and that's almost the gross domestic product of the country. Am I right in saying this is the biggest fraud in history?
Oh, easily. And that's why I think our mantra should be not a penny more until we have a Pecora investigation started. Pecora was the guy, experienced prosecutor that we brought in the Great Depression to say, find out the facts. And the Wall Street fat cats hated him, detested him, fought him every step of the way. But he found the facts. He found the widespread fraud, and it led to many of the statutory changes that for 50 years worked so successfully in America until Wall Street, finally got enough political juice to get rid of the laws in right near the end of the Clinton administration.
Now, on record, it was the Clinton people with the Republicans in tandem in the 90s that gutted most of this, and then George W. Bush was a happy participant in the run-up to what we see now. Can you speak specifically to that? And in your own words, is this not a complete hijacking of our entire economy by Wall Street?
Well, yes, I can speak to that directly, and yes, it was at they were at the beck and call of the industry. The laws passed by overwhelming margins, but this was very much a Reuben Summers and Phil Graham working together special to get rid of Glass-Steagall. And then the shutting down of Brooksley Born when she was trying to regulate these credit default swaps that destroyed AIG. That, again, was Summers and Phil Graham working together and this is so bizarre. They not only passed a law that stopped her particular proposed regulation, the law said you can't regulate to protect the taxpayers at all.
So they are legislating protection of crime. For people that don't understand, can you explain what toxic... I mean, for those that may not be able to grasp it or who've heard it bandied around in the media but don't, get exactly what it is, can you explain what these toxic waste assets are? I mean, am I right in saying they're just fiat, fraudulent, Ponzi scheme, mining stock in Arizona type, crud that they then have big insurance companies certify, and then that becomes another toxic layer of debt. Those certifications are then traded, and then how many layers in the pyramid, as they nest like Russian dolls, these frauds within each other. I mean, this is the biggest. I mean, to my mind, it's just such a ridiculous scam on its face.
Well, you're right that it's layered. It isn't typically mining stock, fake mining stock. It was typically what we call subprime or liar's loans was what we call the underlying. And that means as it became in truth in 2006, 2007, lending to folks where a very substantial number of the people were going to default on the mortgages. We're talking, maybe 25%. Typically, default rates on prime mortgages run under 1%, to give you a contrast. So something 25 times as bad, roughly. And then you did create lots of elaborate, we call them financial derivatives on top of them, some of which took the form of supposedly being insurance. They used the language of insurance, but in reality they were just pretty much open guarantees. That's what credit default swaps are in reality. And you're right that not only layered, but if you think about it like those kids' games where you try to stack things on top of each other.
Yes.
And they can hold up, and they can hold up, they start shaking, and they become more unwieldy. And the bad news is the longer it holds together before it collapses, the bigger the collapse and the more damage when it collapses.
So the old adage of the bigger they are, the harder they fall.
Yeah, well, now they don't fall at all, right? They're not allowed to fall. I mean, President Obama was asked at press conference, now this is about 6 weeks ago, and he said, well, hardly any banks are in trouble. And then he was asked, well, good, are you going to close the ones that are? Oh, no, we're not going to close any large banks. Well, what happens when you give people immunity in advance?
It causes recklessness.
At best. Recklessness on a good day, outright fraud on most days.
So can you describe this then? If it's not even a Ponzi scheme that's meant to fail now, then what is it, a debt bomb or like a black hole that then is going to suck everything into it?
Oh, no, it was a Ponzi dynamic. You had to grow and grow and grow much more rapidly, which is why people poured on the toxic waste at increasingly fast rates in 2006, 2007.
But that's what I'm asking. This is a Ponzi scheme that then blows up and turns into a black hole.
Yeah, one institution, IndyMac, sold $80 billion of liar's loans in 1 year. In 4.5 years, it sold far more liar's loans than the entire savings and loan debacle. So IndyMac, all by itself, pretty much cost the same as the entire savings and loan debacle. See how intensifying, how much worse it gets if you don't fix the underlying problem.
So they knew, though. I mean, all along, they knew this was going to implode and then devastate things.
They were selling liar's loans. What was to know?
No, I mean, I understand
that. How more transparent can you get?
So clearly...
Can you imagine coming to the regulators saying, hi, we've got a new strategic business plan. Great, what is it? We're going to make fraudulent loans. Oh, okay.
And so this is key, Professor. You're saying that, I mean, just on record, that the people that remove these laws, because I remember seeing Senator Dornan and others say this was going to happen on the floor, but he was against it. They knew from setting it up, from running it up to running it down, they fully knew, and this was premeditated.
No, I'm not saying that. I don't know that Congress knows. I'm telling you that in the trade, everybody knew that if you made something called a liar's loan, it was because they were frauds overwhelmingly, and that it was going to produce a disaster. Now, Congress, of course, is paid not to know, right? The bankers don't go in front of Congress and say, hi, we want to produce a disaster. Please take our money. They tell Congress, hey, we have this wonderful new thing, financial derivatives. And everybody, which is to say us, on Wall Street, says this is the greatest thing since sliced bread. right? And everything's going to be wonderful, and we need it because unless we have it, we can't compete with the German massive, what are called universal banks that can do anything. So we have to get rid of every protection we've ever put in place in the United States so that our big banks can compete with their giant banks. That's how they sold it to Congress.
But obviously somebody in Congress before knew it was bad, or it wouldn't have been illegal previously.
Well, yes, because we did an investigation and we found the facts. So I urge your listeners to join us in demanding an investigation of what caused the problem, and, of course, that we then fix the problem as opposed to ignore it.
All right,
we
in your
did
own words.
Fix it after the Great Depression, and it worked for, a whole 2 generations of Americans.